All right, my name is Dae Bogan. I'm the head of third-party partnerships at the MLC. Part of my role is overseeing our data quality initiative partnership program. Today, we'll be showcasing music data services, and I'll be welcoming in Abby North later. First, I'm going to start with an overview of the MLC. I'll give you some quick background for those who may be new to our organization. I would like to say that we do have a Q&A question feature. So if you do have questions, please drop your questions in our Q&A box and not in the chat because we'll be using the Q&A box to flow through questions later in the presentation. Okay, so the MLC's origin and mission. The MLC was created pursuant to the Music Modernization Act of 2018. The MLC offers a new blanket license for digital music providers to cover mechanical licensing of US-based interactive streaming and downloads. Digital music providers provide usage data and royalties to the MLC. We then match that information to the musical work information in our system and our database, and then pay out self-administered songwriters, ex-US CMOs, and music publishers. So US Digital Audio Services pay the MLC. We then pay out you, our members. The MLC is the exclusive administrator of the new blanket license. The MLC is the only organization that can collect and distribute the royalties paid pursuant to this new blanket license to rights holders. The US revenue digital music landscape is sort of depicted here. On the left side, we have musical works. Musical works have the public performance right, which is represented in public performance royalties. Those royalties are collected and paid out by ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, Global Music Rights, which are PROs, and they flow. They're paid out in the distributions to publisher share and writer shares. On the reproduction distribution rights, those are embodied in mechanical royalties, and for blanket mechanical royalties, those are paid out through the MLC. And for voluntary mechanical royalties, which are voluntary or direct licenses between a user, music service, and a rights holder, those royalties are paid down to music publishers, self-administered songwriters in mechanical royalty shares. On the sound recording side, we have the reproduction and distribution rights, which is paid out in wholesale proceeds for streaming and downloads. Those royalties are paid, sort of master royalties to distributors and aggregators, and then down to record labels and self-released artists. For the digital downloads, which includes a mechanical royalty, those royalties are passed on and then paid down to publishers and self-administered songwriters. Digital performance rights for sound recording, those royalties are paid by Sound Exchange to labels, to record labels, to featured artists, and to non-featured artists through the Union Fund. So this is sort of the overview of the US digital music landscape in terms of royalties. This graphic is available on our website as well under the resources section. So what the MLC will and will not do. The MLC will establish and maintain a public database of musical works ownership information. We administer a new blanket license covering mechanical rights available to eligible digital audio services operating in the United States. We'll receive and match sound recording usage reporting data, ownership data, and we will collect and distribute US digital audio mechanical royalties to music publishers, administrators, foreign mechanical rights organizations, and self-administered songwriters, composers, and lyricists. The MLC will not administer performance rights for musical works or collect performance royalties. We will not administer digital performance rights for sound recordings or collect digital performance royalties. We will not administer mechanical rights or collect mechanical royalties for physical products. We will not administer any licenses or collect any royalties related to the use of musical works and audiovisual products or lyrics. And we will not administer licenses or collect royalties for the use of musical works outside the United States. The MLC will not replace PROs, and the MLC will not replace Sound Exchange. So who needs to become a member? All music publishers, administrators, and CMOs who have the right to collect digital audio mechanical royalties from licensees in the United States, and then only those self-administered songwriters, composers, and lyricists who have retained the right to collect digital audio mechanical royalties from licensees in the United States for at least one musical work. The MLC will pay anyone entitled to collect mechanicals for a given musical work. Unlike the system for performance royalties, mechanical royalties are not separated into writer share and publisher share. So how do you become a member of the MLC? You go to our website, www.themlc.com, and click on the blue Connect to Collect button in the upper right section. The DSPs pay 100% of the mechanical license collective's operating costs. This allows us to pay 100% of the royalties that we receive without deducting any administration fees. So it's free to join the MLC, and you receive 100% of your mechanical royalties with no administration fee off the top. The MLC has the Data Quality Initiative. This initiative is to help rights holders with large catalogs to clean up their data at the MLC. The process is to check your data in bulk and then to react to any discrepancies that may be identified in that process. We've had over 400 participants, and we've compared over 17 million works. We have a number of webinars on our website about the DQI initiative. Today, obviously, we will be doing a demo of the DQI implementation at Music Data Services. So for this, I would like to welcome Abby North, who will be providing a demo of Music Data Services implementation of the DQI and how you can participate as a member through Music Data Services. Abby, welcome.
Thank you, Dae. You definitely got this down.
I'm going to hop off screen and let you take it over here from here.
Okay, thanks, Dae. Hello, everyone. I see a bunch of friends in here, and actually some people who've already seen our tools. So with Music Data Services, we developed what we call the registration suite. It is something that we use, but it allows us to take a spreadsheet that we've created and take the data from that spreadsheet and convert it to both CWR 2.1 and DQI. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you the spreadsheet and a few other things. Okay, close this up. So this is the spreadsheet that we created, and this spreadsheet includes information about the works. It includes information about the writers, the publishers, and then other aspects that we use for works registration. So each section of this spreadsheet is collapsible and expandable. And anybody who wants to use Music Data Services to convert their data to DQI, you reach out to me, and then I share this spreadsheet with you and you fill it out. So just to show you what the spreadsheet is, again, there's the work information. So we have the work title, the work ID, which is an ID that you would assign, the MLC song code, if you have it, the ISWC, and then we have information about alternate titles. So in this case, the work that I'm showing you here is called Christmas Time. So I created an alternate title that's Xmas Time, and then we have this that indicates it's an alternate title, and then the language. So in this case, it's English. So I'm using EN as the language. We're going to fast forward to this stuff because it's not relevant right now. So public domain work. This stuff is, as I said, we create CWR files in addition to creating the DQI files. So whereas the public domain information might not be relevant for a DQI file, it is if you're creating a CWR file. So yes or no, if the work is a public domain work, you do need to include the last name, at least, of the writer, and then also the title of the original title of the public domain work. In this case, ours is not public domain, so it's no. So there are two writers of this work. And by the way, these sections are all collapsible and expandable with this plus or minus icon at the top of the section. So the writers. So I've got to include the information about the writers. I've got a last name, first name, the role code. So the role code is composer and author, etc. Again, this stuff is not related to DQI, but it is related to works registration. Okay, so the performance rights organization, mechanical rights, performance rights share, the mechanical rights share, and this is for the writer. So the MLC does not distribute to writers. So even if the writer had a mechanical share, that actually wouldn't make its way over to the DQI file. The only mechanical shares that will are related to the publisher. So we get to the original publisher, and here we have a performance share and a mechanical share. So when we create this DQI file, we're taking the publisher name and then we're taking that mechanical share, and that's how we're porting the data to the DQI file that we prepare for you that you can then submit to the MLC. So in any case, this particular work has 2 writers, 2 publishers. So to create the DQI file, you would, as the user, prepare the data, you'd send it to me, and then the process that I go through is this. So this is our registration suite. We have the first module, which allows us to create the CWR files and DQI files. And then we have a validator for the CWR file, which I'll show you. This is separate. This is an acknowledgement file for CWR, or acknowledgement viewer. Okay, so coming to the batch registration. So for me to create this, my process, I have to provide my IPI, sender name, which in this case will be North Music Group. We have to create a batch number for CWR, and that's how we name a CWR file. But for file naming for DQI, it's different. It would be time and date, and that will auto create for you. So in this case, let's say I'm going to, this is the file I need to convert. Let's give it a batch number. Let's just say it's 9,000. The sender code would be, for me, my CWR submitter ID, just that. And then recipient code, in this case, we're going to make it be the MLC or Harry Fox. So for Harry Fox, their recipient ID is 034. I'm going to create an NWR, a new work registration CWR file, but also create the corresponding DQI files. So generate. So there it is. So now I get over here to my downloads. So we've just created the CWR file, which I can show you for fun. So here's our CWR validator. This is the CWR file. So this is all the data within, this was that data within that Excel spreadsheet, and now it's in CWR format. So if you were using this and you wanted to know what everything was, you would hover over any point. Oh, look, that's the submitter work ID. This is the interested party number, etc. So I can see all of the data from the CWR file, and I can also tell that it's valid. And this is because I don't see any red highlights. So that's what we're looking at from a CWR perspective. And then when we look at the DQI perspective, so we have 3 files that got created. One is the works, the other is the writers, and the third is the alt titles. So if we look at the works first, sorry. There we go. So the work, so what got exported, the data that got exported, I did not include, if you remember, an MLC song code in here. So nothing is here. But what we do have is the ISWC. The collection share is the aggregated share of these 2 publishers because I control them both. So that's 100%. And then the 2 writers. So this is the data that you would deliver to the MLC. The next file is the writers. So with the writers, we have the IPI name numbers, and I created an error. And I delivered this actually the other day because I wanted to show you what the export looks like, what the MLC's response looks like. So I created an error in McKenna's IPI name number. Delivered here. So there's 2 writers, 2 IPIs, and that's from that Excel spreadsheet to the data, the DQI file. Okay, then we have alternate titles. I did create that alternate title, which was Xmas time. And so that will show up on this file here. So these 3 get delivered to the MLC, however you do it. I do it via FTP. So then what we receive from the MLC is 2 files, or are 2 files. One is the output, and the other is the output summary. The output summary is a summary of what was included. So there's the total number of works, total Harry Fox works that were processed, the ISWC not found, which was 1, because I gave it a fake ISWC, and then an IPI, which I delivered incorrectly. And so therefore that's showing up as an error as well. So that's the summary file. And then here is the detail. So what we're seeing here is that the first issue is that the IPI name number, which is this one, is invalid. And then what we also see is that the ISWC was not found. So the ISWC not being found doesn't actually mean that it's incorrect. It might be incorrect, but what it means is that Harry Fox or the MLC does not have that ISWC. So it hasn't been delivered to them in a previous registration, let's say, for example. So that's the crux of what we're creating. So we export the 3 files, we deliver them to the MLC, and in return, we receive these output files. So what do we do with that? So that's what I want to show you next. So I created a little presentation here. So again, Music Data Services primary focus is on creating CWR and DQI files, but we also help rights holders kind of clean and organize and enhance their data. This is I created sort of a presentation about what do you do with the information you receive. For example, invalid IPI or ISWC not found. So it's great that you know it, but now what do you do? Okay, so again, we had 2 issues, invalid IPI and the ISWC not found. So as I said, I don't know that the ISWC is incorrect, but before I deliver a works registration with that information, I want to make sure that it's correct. So how do I find the right IPI and how do I confirm the ISWC? Okay, so to find the IPI and ISWC, we have to go to the PROs. So there's 2 options. You can go to ASCAP or you can go to BMI, and ASCAP and BMI share this joint database called SongView. So I'm going to show you both ways to get there, to get to SongView via ASCAP and via BMI. So the first pass, we're going to find the IPI via BMI. So that's the URL. Okay, and this is what it looks like. This is what SongView's repertoire or repertory database looks like through BMI. So I've entered the title Christmas Time and the writer-composer McKenna North. Okay, so now here's what I see. I see that Abby North's, my IPI is this, and McKenna's is this. So McKenna's ends in 44, and what I had was 45 there. So I would correct that, right? I would change the 45 to 44, and I would redeliver my works registration, and then also rerun a DQI report. But first, we got the IPI. So now let's find the ISWC. So to do that, I am doing this one through ASCAP's view of SongView. So this is how my search window looks. Again, title is Christmas Time, the writer McKenna North. And this time I see this, and here's the ISWC. So as we can see, this ends in 675. So if I come back to my supplied ISWC. So I provided the correct ISWC, but what I know now is that it simply hasn't been delivered to Harry Fox and the MLC. So I do need to deliver registration. So if I'm delivering a registration via CWR, it would be a revision. There are 2 types of CWR files. One is an NWR, a new work registration, and the other one is a revision. So in this case, it hasn't been delivered. If it hasn't been delivered at all, we do the NWR with these data points. If it has been delivered, but let's say, for example, you either had the wrong data in the original registration or simply haven't entered complete data, you would do the rev. So we've got now the IPI and the ISWC. And then there's one more data point that we can provide to the MLC, which helps them identify our works, and that would be the MLC or Harry Fox song code. How do you find that? So that one is at the MLC. So you can use the MLC's public database. URL is here. This is how I searched for it within the MLC's public portal. I've got the work title as Christmas Time, again, McKenna. And I in the refined search, I opened that up, entered McKenna, and then I click refine search to get to this. So this is the record within the MLC's public portal. And here I see the song code, which is CB3E94. So now I have that song code. So now when I deliver my final registration, Rev or NWR, to the MLC, I can't in a CWR include the MLC song code, but when I create the DQI file, I can include that MLC song code, and then MLC can use that as an identifier to find my works. So you would add the data to the spreadsheet, that the music data services spreadsheet. Again, Christmas time. Now I've got the MLC song code in there, and I've got that ISWC, and then you're good to go. So that is the whole thing. Are there any questions? Let me get back to here.
Thank you very much, Abby. I'll take it from here. Then we're going to get into Q&A once I finish up with some additional slides. So if you have questions, please drop those questions in the Q&A feature. I'm going to finish up my portion of the presentation, and we're going to get into the Q&A. So you just saw a demo of the Music Data Services. Music Data Services is a DQI partner, which means it is one of the few services that has been verified and has the authority to enable rights holders to participate in our DQI and work directly with the MLC. So what's next? So to participate in the Data Quality Initiative, you need to become an MLC member. And then you can participate via Music Data Services to check your data, also directly with the MLC. And you want to make sure you confirm your payment information so that we're paying you out to the right bank accounts. You can check your data in the portal. Our portal is live and running now. You can go to our website to gain access to the portal. We have royalty, our royalty cadence is on a monthly basis, with payments being made 75 days after the close of the period, the usage period. So for example, for January, the payments were distributed in April. You can learn more about our royalty cadence on our website. And our support team is available 6 days a week, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're available via phone, email, and chat. So now we're going to open this up for Q&A. We'll take Q&A from the Q&A box, as well as any LinkedIn Live Q&As that will be sent to me directly from our team behind the scenes.
Okay, so I'm looking at Herman's question. If you have multiple writers under only one publisher, must I add the original publisher info after every entry? Writer 1, writer 2, writer 3, or just leave the OP1 info? So yes. So the way the spreadsheet works is each writer, we've created writer and publisher chains within that spreadsheet. So each writer has its corresponding original publisher, and then the share typically of the writer equals the share of the publisher. So if it was an original publisher who had a total 50% divided among 3 writers, when you list that original publisher after each writer, you will solely include that writer's share. So we are also, let's say the writer, because writers do not collect mechanicals typically, let's say we double the writer's performance share to get to the publisher's performance share, which then gets doubled to get to the publisher mechanical share, typically. So again, yes, every writer must have a corresponding publisher and matching shares.
Thank you, Abby. We don't have any other questions, but I will wait a few seconds to see if anyone comes up with something. Well, while I have you here, Abby, do you want to talk about the cost for participating in the Music Data Services DQI?
Yes, sure. So it's the base cost is $10 per file, and then it's 5 cents. It starts at 5 cents per work or line on the file, and that tiers based upon the number of works in the file. So if it's 100 works, it would be, what is that, $0.05, $5, or 50 cents, I guess, a time plus the $10 source fee. So the idea was we wanted to make this as inexpensive as possible because we want as many people as possible to have access to both Common Works registration and DQI.
And I just want to highlight that although DQI is technically a platform that is useful for those with large catalogs, you don't have a minimum of number of works. I can come in with 10 works and still participate in DQI through Music Data Services.
Absolutely. And in fact, I encourage it because there's something to having multiple views of your data to sort of illustrate when there's an issue. So for example, if I hadn't submitted that DQI file, I wouldn't actually have known that the IPI was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even though I only submitted one work, it was the DQI file or the DQI output that actually informed the IPI issue.
Right. And it's a lot of times, human error. You have the right number of characters, but you don't necessarily have the right numbers. And I think that's important too.
Okay, so Brian's got a question. For a self-administered writer who does business through his LLC, would the LLC be listed as the owner and not the individual author? What if there's uncertainty about whether or not the payors would have rightly entered copyright publishing? I think this is both you and me, Dae.
Yeah. Let me jump into this really quick. So in regards to self-administered writers that is doing business through an LLC, first of all, it depends. Is your LLC your publishing entity? Because there's one thing to do business as a songwriter under LLC as a entity that's using you as a lend out versus a LLC that's actually acting as your publishing entity. If that is the case, then you can input the information if that LLC is registered as a publisher and has an IPI number. That would mean you probably have an account with the PRO, as a publishing account with the PRO, and therefore have an IPI number. So if you do have your own publishing entity with its own IPI number, then you can input that information as your publisher. If you have an LLC just as a songwriter for your business as a songwriter, that's not the same thing as being an LLC as a publisher. So the second part of that is, what if they entered performer name instead of the writer name on the publisher name? You want to make sure you put your correct legal name. We're not necessarily looking for your performer or stage name. If you're a singer-songwriter, for example, and you have a name as an artist, which is different from your legal name, you want to make sure that you're using your legal name when it comes to registering works, because payments are being made to your legal name. In some cases, there are name IPI numbers for other names, but if you have a sort of a primary name number or base number, IPI number for yourself as an individual, you want to use that legal name. Do you want to add anything to that, Patty?
Brian, if any part of that question was related to how to fill out the spreadsheet, let me know. But I think that was just, you were asking just those questions of Dae.
Okay, so, would I join the MLC as a foreign indie publisher? In that case, how will I receive my payments? Yeah, you can join the MLC no matter where you are in the world, as long as you have the administration rights in the United States for mechanicals. So if you're a foreign indie publisher, you can potentially join the MLC. However, if you are a member of a CMO in your territory that is a member of the MLC, then you would not need to join the MLC, because that CMO will be representing you. So for example, if you are...
Oh, we lost Dae. I think his battery died. So I'll take over some of these questions. So Brian, so you ask, what I mean is if the mechanical licensee incorrectly entered information on their end. So from the CWR standpoint, we're going to create a CWR file based upon whatever data you provide in that spreadsheet. If you have a CWR submitter ID, if you're set up to deliver the CWR files, you will deliver it. And then the vetting of the mechanical licensee really would happen I think, on the MLC or Harry Fox end. It wouldn't really have anything to do with the data as delivered. Okay, so Bishop, can I register without the recording title but have ISRC? So the answer, I think, from both my perspective creating the files and then also from the MLC is, yeah, you can. But it's better to have both. The matching should be happening based upon the ISRC, but often I think there's a lookup of the title. And to that end, if you're a music publisher, Dae's back. If you're a music publisher, Dae, I'm answering the Bishop's question about register without the recording title, but have the ISRC. So Bishop, if you are the publisher and you see that a recording title doesn't match exactly the composition title as you've registered, I highly recommend making the recording title that's different be an alternate title when you register your composition, because we want to give as much data, as much help to anybody who's matching as we can. And so it's a good idea to give, if you know that the recording title is different, make it be an alternate title of your composition. Okay, let's look at Herman. Herman, after the initial entries are migrated into CWR file, who reviews or has access to the ACK info? So I don't deliver your files for you. I only create them, meaning I only create that initial CWR file or DQI file, and then I hand them off to you. I could deliver your DQI files for you. I cannot deliver your CWR files for you. The only people who really, it's different with ASCAP and BMI. But with Harry Fox or the MLC, it's only the entitled party or an entitled party who can deliver the CWR file. So that being the case, you would be the one to receive the ACK file. If you wanted to send it to me and have me convert the ACK file data to a CSV, I can do that. Brian, what I mean, yeah, oh, actually, Dae, you might want to address this one. What I said regarding if the mechanical licensee is incorrectly entered, that I wouldn't be vetting that data from the data part of it, but the party would deliver, let's say, the CWR file or whatever work registration to, let's say, the MLC, and then the MLC would be doing the vetting of rights holder information, right?
Correct. So if there's any, the DQI file or the DQI process is a process to identify any discrepancies between the data that you have and the data that we have. And in that process, you'll be able to identify lots of potential issues, and how you resolve those issues will be working directly with the MLC for going line by line and resolving those issues. So whether it's a missing information or if it's inaccurate ownership information, you will be able to identify that by the DQI process. And then there's the next phase, which is to actually address those issues with the MLC.
Kyle asks, what's your process like for deduplication of musical works? Are you typically uncovering is this Kyle, is it, I'm not sure if this is for me or for Dae.
Well, I'll just answer in regards to the MLC. If there is a duplicate work, okay, was for Abby. Well, if there's a duplicate work, generally, if the information is the exact same in the registration process, that stuff is merged. But if there's two work registrations and there's different information, then that could potentially be potentially a dispute, depending on what information is incorrect. But I'll let you answer, Abby, from your behalf.
So the deduplication of musical works in the context of, let's say, creating a file is really fairly manual, because what we look at when you enter in the work title and you would enter in the submitter work ID, we would look at those, and it's Excel, so we can select remove duplicates or identify duplicates. So if we see them, of course, the thing is that we have to be careful with this because sometimes multiple works have the same title. So we don't necessarily, we're not sure that a duplicate title is actually data that needs to be deduplicated. However, when we see it in, let's say there's a duplicate in the submitter work ID or some other identifier, that we know is probably something that needs to be corrected. And sometimes what we'll see is It might be like there's the same submitter work ID, but somebody may have entered an alternate title in the original title field. So if we see that, we know, okay, we have to move that over. We need to have simply one record with the original title and then its alternate titles, but we can only have one instance of the submitter work ID or whatever the identifier is. Are we typically uncovering duplicate works via DQI or other methods? You know, so for my own catalogs, what we see are multiple registrations of works, but we didn't deliver all of those registrations. So every time, you know, whenever you have a work with multiple co-publishers, each of those co-publishers will deliver its own registration of the work. So what happens is if some data point is different among the various publishers, the various co-publishers, that can result in multiple iterations of a registration for a work. So we do see that. We can see that because what we'll see is there might be a conflict or an issue with the MLC work ID when we pop it up. We might see something there in the DQI output. Any other questions? Okay.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen again just to remind you of our support. So you can get more information from the MLC.com, and you can contact our support Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Through Friday, and then 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Thank you very much for your time, Abby, and for that demonstration. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.